5 years ago, I had a very important experience in my life. I used to live across the street from the beach on Staten Island. Hurricane Sandy destroyed my home in October of 2012. One of the neighborhoods that was leveled was the one in which my family and my entire extended family owned our homes. After the storm, we were essentially left homeless. It was an extremely difficult time in my life and for my family, but there was a tremendous outpouring of love. People from all around the country and all around the world came to my neighborhood to help us get back on our feet after the storm. And I saw God in every one of those people. It was the most religious experience I've ever had. Church, and in particular liturgical music, should create experiences like the one I had after the hurricane for everyone in the congregation. Liturgical music is part of the liturgy for a reason, not just to keep us entertained during the Mass. The music should enable a more religious experience. Most church music that I've experienced since an early age hasn't stirred anything in me. This class has opened my eyes as to what liturgical music can be and what it should be by showing me masses in both New York City and Rome. At St. Ignatius of Loyola in New York City, I saw a mass with beautiful polyphonic choral singing that, although it was amazing to hear, it was difficult to participate for someone untrained in music such as me. This is a small sample of what most of the music there sounded like. The music played here was very traditional and reminded me of the music played at St. Peter's Basilica for the Mass with the Pope. The music was beautiful, with a big brass section complementing a very well-trained choir. It was a wonderful thing to hear. The Mass was in many different languages like Italian, German, Russian, and Korean, and this aspect of the Mass made it feel very connecting to the people sitting around me from nearly every imaginable ethnicity. It was an amazing experience for someone who has been raised Catholic to be at a Mass with the Pope and hear this amazing music. Unfortunately, the setting and grandeur of the music made the Mass feel less religious and more of a spectacle. It was still a religious experience for me, but not one of prayerfulness and connection to God, but more of a connection to the Church and its people. At the Italian parish of Santa Maria in Trastevere, I found that the music was not very far removed from the music sung at my home parish on Staten Island, aside from the language barrier, of course. This was very nostalgic, and the church had a homey feel, but I was not particularly moved by the Mass there. The music there was fairly simple, homophonic choral music that wasn't particularly well done or enjoyable. It was a beautiful church, but it did not produce a religious feeling for me. I think because the music wasn't very beautiful and didn't help me connect with the Mass at all. The music just wasn't something beautiful that produced a religious experience, and I think this is a problem a lot of churches everywhere have. I think I came to Rome expecting Italian parishes to be much different from churches in America, but I found that Italian parishes were just as unique from one another as churches in America are. The Gesù, which we visited on the Epiphany, had great music that helped with quiet reflection of that feast, while the church my classmates visited in Florence had no music at all. These churches and churches I visited at home gave me a lot of music to consider when considering what liturgical music I appreciated. I most enjoyed the music from St. Francis of Assisi in New York because of the ease of singing along, but at the same time the modernness of it was a little bit distracting from worship. I also really enjoyed the plain chant we heard in class, especially the early polyphonic pieces we heard by Leonan and Peraltan. But I didn't understand these pieces enough to participate. For the most religious experience, for me at least, I think an updated version of plain chant with more modern language, like the language in the music from St. Francis of Assisi, would be the perfect liturgical music. I've heard a lot of different kinds of liturgical music in this course, and I believe that striking a balance between all of them, modern and ancient, not one or the other, would make liturgical music better. I think this is the way to reproduce the feeling of seeing God without a traumatic experience, like a hurricane. I think this should be the goal of all liturgical music.